start this as a request. Now I'm really close. I am going to start this one with a clearing. Had a beautiful request for that from somebody who watches my YouTube channel regularly. So we've got that. All right, Robbie, let's open it up with the nice intentional prayer for today.
All right. So taking some deep breaths. Even if you're watching this as a recording, this prayer is still rippling into your life. So inviting you to center yourself and bring yourself into deep presence, opening your heart to receive whatever aligns with your highest and best good. At this time, we ask that the Creator, in its many forms, Mother, Father, God, the holy beings of pure unconditional love, the angels, the Buddhas, the Christ, all the higher beings that watch over the awakening, evolution, and healing of humankind and planet Earth, to be here with us now. We ask that Meredith and myself can speak from our hearts with love and truth and authenticity, that our words may touch the hearts and minds of others, all those who watch or listen to this, and that this can send a beautiful ripple into the universe in alignment with each person's highest and best good. Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Amazing. So I see people coming in. Hi, everybody. Feel free to connect in the comments below. And yeah, today we are going to be talking about authenticity and communication and how that functions and doesn't function sometimes in relationships. I feel like we're going to get into, interpersonal relationships are, that's my jam. I think all of us would love those to go smoothly and for everyone to get along, right? So communication and speaking authentically from our heart, that coherence of our inner thoughts and our feelings with how we portray that. But yeah, speaking of that, that's one of the things I believe is authenticity, is being able to know what's going on inside of us, allowing ourselves the permission to do that, to drop in there, to be curious. How do I really feel about something? How do I really think about it? Yeah. What do you think, Robbie, about
Yeah,
authenticity? Yeah.
I think it's like very authentic of you. Well, we were just saying how like as we were getting ready for this call before we actually hit live, you were sharing about how like some of the people who watch, they're like, oh, I just love watching because you're just so yourself, or like the person that's like, oh, I missed you doing your crystal thing, and it's like just such an authentic Meredith thing to do, right? Her little
Right.
crystal thing. And it's magnetic, it's attractive, it's like people are drawn to it because it's just you. It's like there's not fear there, you're just being yourself. And so I find that for me, that's like, I like to be around the people who celebrate that authentic self in me,
Yeah.
and where it's easy to be authentic. Those are the relationships that I find are the most fulfilling. And for me, authenticity, like when I think of authenticity, our greatest teachers are children,
Hmm.
because children are just so unabashedly authentic. Like
Did
they
you
just,
get the permission to be an authentic child? Like, was that cultivated in you? Or how do you feel about your experience as a child
yeah,
that way?
I feel like there was certainly space for it. And I feel like I also was around a lot of adults that didn't have the skills to be authentic,
Yeah.
and no judgment. I feel very grateful for my family and my parents, and I love them dearly. And they also didn't have the skills to be authentic because it's a
Hmm.
practice. And so in that, I learned how to be inauthentic
Hmm.
as well, fairly quickly in terms of my life, by
Yeah.
age 7 or 8. And it wasn't just my family, it was just the culture in general. Like
Yep.
being in Canada and North American culture, there's certainly there's not authenticity is not necessarily valued or encouraged
Hmm.
in like a general broad, like a generalization. Usually it's like, oh, keep your voice down. You don't want to offend them, or like, oh, what will the neighbors think? Or, these kinds of like memes in our culture that
Right.
dampen our ability to just be really honest.
Don't draw attention to yourself. Be
Yeah.
seen and not heard,
Yeah, or like make
kind
sure
of
you
thing.
smile.
Right.
Like even if you're sad, make sure you smile, or
Yeah.
you shouldn't cry like that, or whatever it is, right? Like all the things that we're either told directly or it's just inferred by
Yeah.
people's behavior. And so I feel like all children are authentic, and then it's just whether that's created a space to cultivate it or not. I'm curious for you, Meredith, like
Yeah.
when you were growing up, did you feel that there was a safe space for you to be your authentic self?
Absolutely. I feel like I was really I think that was the strong suit of my family actually, or my mother and father, I'm the oldest, I have a sister, and I was specifically celebrated. I think there was some grief, the loss of my aunt just days before I was born, and I feel like the whole world was in mourning that I was born into. And so I feel like I was treated like a bit of a treasure and a fresh start and this saving grace. And I feel like in that sense, I was allowed to be myself. It was like people were had a reverence for life. And I feel like not that it was strange to be like I wasn't watched, scrutinized like that, but I was allowed to be a kid. I was allowed to play. I came from a family of artists, or I do come from a family of artists. So that was like my solace was expression, art and nature. And um, that's about, you know, how would I say this? Authenticity is the strong suit, and then when it came to doing anything that would be, like, fitting into mainstream or, I feel like I wasn't necessarily a homeschooled child, but it gives that feeling, like, I learned independent thinking, and that was celebrated. My creativity was the no-go zone. Nobody criticized an original idea or an expression of art, and I think instead of a class clown kind of thing, coming up with innovative things was the way that I was received attention and love. That was actually, I look back and I mean, that was it. So right from the beginning, I do realize I couldn't relate to that mainstream thing. It's like I had a tinfoil hat in my energy at all times. So yeah,
Mhm.
authenticity was number 1.
Yeah, and I feel like for me too, like hearing your reflections helps me clarify a bit of like my answer to that, which is my family certainly would have like welcomed authenticity. It never was shut down. However, I feel that yeah, I like picked up a lot of fears and like insecurities from the
Yeah,
collective field of like the culture and my family and just like energies that dampen our authenticity.
right.
And that's more what I found in just trying to then fit in or like just go with the norm or like get conditioned into the culture
Yeah,
of modern world because I remember like up until about like probably 5 or 6 years old, I was like very quite authentic, and I was actually the class clown and always making jokes and always making people laugh, and it was actually like my greatest joy. I really loved it.
yeah.
And then with time, that kind of like I slowly lost that through
Okay.
through growing up, being put in school where like the school environment really didn't work for me. It really did not align with my authentic nature and what I actually needed. And yeah, my parents separating as well when I was 7 years old had quite an impact on me. Like it really
Yeah,
created I really felt the tear in the family and
yeah,
like the tearing apart of mom and dad. It was like in some ways very healthy separation. Like there was a lot of consciousness and it wasn't like a crazy fight, but it was still I felt the tearing. Like, these
yeah.
two people are mom and dad and now they're not and not together. So that really affected me too, and that grief and confusion separated me from my authentic self,
Yeah.
like the trauma of it.
Yeah, I also, my family went through a divorce at around that
Mm,
time, and they were amicable in that, but the community around it was really not heard of so much. It felt like it was taboo to get divorced and to go through that, but there was a lot of trauma that came from that in the community.
mm,
Prejudice and weird things that happened, and it was sort of a loss of innocence. But what it did to me was it put me right into connection with God. I remember sitting in my yard quite a bit and like reaching up to heaven with my energy and saying, God, like, send me true love in this life, because right now I'm not a believer. Like, help me out here, God.
mm,
And yeah, it was like I sent this intention that if I was going, I actually said to God, send me love in my life, true love in my life, where I want to go back to heaven and have a redo. I remember saying that to God. And then it was my first vision because I saw like the flower of life. I didn't even know what that was. I saw it like holographic flower of life above the earth exploding and raining down like rainbow like drops all over me, and it was almost like God said, as you wish. And it feels surreal sometimes because I feel as an adult now I'm watching that come in this dimension, and I feel like, yes, God's holding out, the divine is holding out for that promise. Like
mm,
all my life I've been trying to, bring that authenticity through, but I think there's a necessary inward dance when we're becoming authentic. I feel like everybody who really taps into that purity within goes within, and it happens that way. How
mm,
did you find that initial, because I feel like trauma adversity, it does give us the opportunity to go within and really get our bearings and go towards a connection with source. But
mm.
there are other things that also point us into that. But yeah, what do you think? Do you think you would have been on the same trajectory had it not been for that soul path at that time? Did you see the originating authentic, like even though you stopped being authentic and you went within, how does that feel like
Mm.
as far as authenticity?
Yeah, totally. I feel like it was like a progressive path in my life of like losing touch with my soul essence, my true nature, through first just like the forgetfulness of growing up as a human being, especially in the modern world, and the natural forgetfulness that we go through, many of us, and then also the accumulated traumatic experiences and conditionings and beliefs and all the things that limit our ability to be aligned with our soul. So I found that that was the effect, and that just kind of like continued into my teenage years and kind of just like got worse, I would say. And I became less and less myself.
Hmm.
And then through the loss of my dad and that whole experience, it was then me coming back around to truth as then a seeker of truth and a seeker of one's true self. And I've found that the closer I grow to God and the closer I grow to the truth that is the core of my being, the truth that is the core of all of our beings, it's like I connect with my authentic self more and more. So it's like for me, there's this very spiritual quality to authenticity that each of us has the light of God, as I understand it, that lives within us, and we can call that our soul. And it's like the light of the sun that shines through a little window or like a fractal that then shoots out a rainbow, and every rainbow is different. So
Yes.
like everyone has this fractal of God in them that's like kind of the same essence. It's all God, but then through our unique karmas and life experiences and beliefs and energies and all of it, our soul shines uniquely as a unique rainbow. And that rainbow, I feel, is our authentic expression where it's like, oh, that's because even when you look at it, enlightened beings like gurus and masters, they all have a different expression of the divine. they're
Mm.
not all the same. It's not like you find God and then you're just all it's just like a cookie cutter. It's like no,
Yeah.
some gurus are like silent and they don't talk, and some are like complete tricksters, crazy men or women who just like they're enlightened, but they just make fun of you and all of this
Mm.
stuff. And then some are like sweet and loving and caring, and some are like strict and harsh. And it's like there's all these different authentic expressions that is unique to that being.
Mm.
So yeah, that's I guess that's like my answer is that I lost it, and then through the spiritual journey I've reclaimed it, and then I
Yeah.
continue to deepen in that.
It's interesting how the loss of your dad also pushed you in another layer into that seeking for authenticity and finding, rites of passage, these different things that happen. And there's so many other rites of passage or adversities that we can face that do that. What was coming up for me when you were talking about the uniqueness of that mastery is when I was like 19 or so, I had a traumatic experience where I won't get into the details, but I kind of shut down and went within, and I I was yeah, it was a difficult time, and I was processing a lot. I did fasting and I meditated. I was at my mom's at that time, and I ended up having a Kundalini awakening actually.
Mm,
And I remember part of that 40 days that I was in this transition in my psyche. Part of it was purging out everything that was guilt and shame, all my memories, all of the things I was carrying around, all the things that I had ego identified with. Um, from the time of my parents' divorce. And I remember going through this moment where my ego was ready to shatter. And I remember seeing this doorway in my mind's eye that represented me stepping into alignment with the divine. And at that doorway was this total fear of personal annihilation, like everything that made me uniquely me. I was so afraid that if I was to align with the divine, that I would become a robot or I would become possessed or taken over by something that wasn't genuine. And the closer I got to that doorway, the day after day, as I purified and went through the meditations I was guided to go through on that in that process, I was just seeking with all of my heart. And the closer I got to that doorway, and once I stepped through, the more I realized how absolutely sacred my uniqueness was.
mm,
And that was exactly the thing that I was being asked to embrace as I approached my connection with divinity. And so that was the thing that ended up resulting in the Kundalini awakening. And after that experience, which I won't get into today, I just remember being in the aftermath of that and feeling so loved by God and
mm,
so intended, that the miracle of having this pinpoint of consciousness that is me in human form in this lifetime. I just remember the ecstasy, the experience of that, and how it couldn't be further from the truth that we lose ourselves when we align with source. It's like we become alive, alive on a level that is so far beyond. Yeah, and that full permission, I did not at that time live in alignment with that, but ever since, I've had a different trajectory, a different bearing on what it means to be authentic.
mm,
And so I'm always seeking that first high, I guess, with that experience of wanting to live in that alignment and
mm,
wanting to be in that purity, whatever that ends up being in each moment. If my thoughts, our emotions are such a beautiful tool for knowing if we're in authenticity or not, because we're in balance. When you were talking about North American culture earlier, I remembered a book called Power versus Force. And in there, it gives the emotional scale. Have you read that one? Do you know
yeah,
what that? Yeah,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
awesome stuff. So the emotional scale is like 0 to 1,000, which would be ascended mastery. And then we have apathy at 20. And then we have guilt and shame at like 50 and 70. And then we've got anger and passion. And that's like North America is kind of at this yo yo of anger and passion, which is like conformity. It's organized religion, it's team sports, it's patriotic energy. And it's kind of like, we're angry about things. Let's do something about it. Oh, we can't do much about it. So we go back to sleep. Oh, we're angry about things. Let's do this. It's this yo yo that happens. And that whole herd mentality and fear based things like the unknown, right? After that bandwidth, we get into neutrality where we're no longer warring against, where now there's more of an objectivity coming in where we can see both sides. We can say, okay, we're both trying to affect greater progress here. These people think maybe this is how, these people think this is how, but we both want to solve this particular thing. We both want a solution. So we get objective, and then we go into love, unconditional love, miracles, and ascended mastery. So a lot of that inauthentic energy really does have to do with that herd mentality, that survival, safety in numbers. But when we're in fear, we go flight, fight, freeze, herd mental, fawn, herd mentality.
Mhm.
So those are all the cues that we're not being authentic. And our emotions can tell us where we're at with that. If we're being authentic, we have learned how to tune in. Know thyself and to thine own self be true are two other things that come in when we're thinking about authenticity. Yeah, so that was kind of
Yeah.
what was coming up for me when you were saying that.
Mm, I love that. Um, the scales of consciousness has been a work that it's really helped me understand energy in such a wonderful way because it's just like, oh, we're just like moving up and down this scale and it's not so
Right.
personal, like, oh, like this
Yes.
stressful thing happened and I just like slid down the ladder and I can climb back up it.
Heck
I'm
yeah.
not this experience. I'm just at a denser level of consciousness and I'm here to excavate something. I'm here to liberate something. And then I want to go back to love or back to truth. And
Yes.
so there's also just to plug something because there's a book, well, not plug it as like a promotional thing, but just like
Yeah.
a recommendation. There's a book called Levels of Energy by Fred Dodson,
Okay.
and he has studied the work of David Hawkins as well as many others, and he's crystallized the scales of energy
Okay.
into or the map of consciousness into the scales of energy, which is his variation of it. And I find that his description and articulation of it is a lot more relatable. Like, I find that David Hawkins can be very mental and, like, very scientific, and it almost it's genius. It just kind of it doesn't register in my mind in the same way, whereas I find that Fred's interpretation is more applicable and relatable, and
Cool.
reading both those books has been really yeah,
I
Levels of
haven't read the second one. I'll check it
Fred
out for
Dodson.
sure.
And Fred Dodson's work, like, all the people here would love it. He's just, like, a
Huh.
total wizard, magician, like, really skilled energy worker and amazing teacher
Right
about
on.
specifically manifestation and reality creation. And one of the tenets of it is authenticity, that if you're not
Right.
authentic, it's really hard to create your own reality because 'cause you're actually just, um, living out someone else's story, right? Like
Right. Yes.
yeah. So
When you were talking about the scales of perception, I tend to teach that quite a bit in my one-on-one sessions. I called it scales of mastery, and I hadn't heard this. So it's like spectrums.
mhm,
Whenever we're exploring something, we have the emotional scale within that theme. The balance point is the middle point. It's not the dualistic, polarized set of opposing information. And
mhm,
we can kind of get stuck in that suffering, in the attachment, in the lower vibrational portions. And it's helpful to remember that this too shall pass, right?
mhm,
A helpful tool when we're stuck in the suffering or in attachment or fixated on something and we're sure that it's never going to get any better. And this is like we're stuck and we're forsaken and we're not lovable and we're hopeless and we're helpless and we're really in there and we're like in the fetal position, like don't believe anything else. Um, a few tools, I mean, that is authentic. One thing is, we could call that shadow work and say that when we find ourselves in that position, we're really at the far reaches of the universe on a spectrum. And we're like, finally, we got to the bedrock of this one. What's in here? And we can be authentic and see, like, how did we get ourselves into that position? Because we're so creative and
Mhm.
so tricky and convincing to ourselves to get into that place. And so if we can look at it as authentically a hole we dug ourselves into, we can start to take like ownership for it. And I always like, I don't get into those too much anymore. But when I used to really bog down into them, I remember laughing a couple of times, the last few times that ever happened, because I was just like, oh, Meredith, you're so adorable. You got yourself in here again. Haha, look at
Right?
that. And so, one tool is it necessary? Is it true? Is it kind? If you're really stuck in a belief system, that's one technique. And those authentic answers that you give yourself, because only you can get yourself out of those kind of rabbit holes, because only you got yourself in. None of that stuff is true. It's just part of a spectrum. Another tool is when we're in that, we can think, somebody else who hasn't had my set of ideas or perspectives would be over here on the spectrum. They would never have this experience because they have these sets of beliefs and interpretations of the same scenario. So we can always break ourselves out of it, or, like Abraham Hicks would say, a slightly better feeling thought. But when we have authenticity, we can own where we're at, no matter where we are on that spectrum. And when we are allowing ourselves to have a whole spectrum of experiences without judgment, we're just loving ourselves unconditionally in all those spaces, that's when we can kind of unstick from those holding patterns and we can start to slide. It's like we're flowing, and now they become symbols, and now they become temporary. They don't become fixed.
Hmm.
And yeah, so we each have those tools to understand. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
I work similarly with, like, when I work with myself in my own energy and when I work with clients one on one. I I found that when we can really embrace what is, like, that's what I hear in what you're saying too, like, take
yeah,
ownership and embrace it, it actually can release quite swiftly and easily, especially when there's support. And it's almost like we feel a negative thing, and because we're resisting it and pushing it away within ourselves, like, oh, I don't want to be depressed, so I'm trying to push away depression. But if we can just be authentic and be like, oh, I'm depressed, I'm a depressed person right now in this moment, it's not who or what I am, but it's more like I am experiencing depression rather than I am depressed,
yes,
and it's
yeah,
like I'm in the experience of it. Then suddenly it's like we allow it to be authentically felt without trying to fight it or push it, and then suddenly it loses its control over us, and then suddenly it's past, and then we're not that anymore, and maybe tomorrow we experience it again, but then it kind of can ebb and flow more. And the more we, like when you were saying earlier about the relationship with truth, how, like, the closer we grow to truth and the closer we grow to the creator's truth within ourself, our true self, our true nature, the more we realize that's our authentic being,
mm,
and everything else is that authentic being having an experience. So
right,
it's like authentically the experience might be fear or depression or joy
mm,
or happiness, and to remember that those experiences, we can have them authentically, and that there's a deeper truth beyond them all.
yes.
And as soon
Love
as
is
we,
the only eternal.
yeah, exactly. And in that, it's like it gets a lot less sticky because
Yes,
there's not the same identification with it. It's
yeah,
not like this is me, because when you identify as something as your authentic self, like if you really truly believe that you are authentically a depressed person and that's just who and what you are, it's really hard to be free from depression, because it's kind of like saying
yeah,
I'm a man. Like, how do I be free of being a man? Well, I either have to like completely change my body or I have to die. Whereas if I'm like, oh, like I'm experiencing this lifetime as a male, but I know that that's just the form that my spirit has chosen. It's not who or what I am at the deepest truth, but in this world, in this reality, I am expressing as an authentic man. So there's a certain way that I'm going to move in the world that's different. However, it's not who or what I am. So
Mm.
I'm not as identified with it. It has more. And then I'm also not limited to be a man in the way that people say you should be a man. It's like
Right.
I get to be my own authentic man. You know, I don't
My
have to.
dog is authentically asking me to be let outside.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
have to do this. Come on. Authentically have to take a break for you, Seek. Oh
You
my
know,
goodness.
because then it's like there's all these conditionings and stories of what it means to be a man
Right.
based on our experiences. Like maybe it's you should be big and strong and not cry, or maybe you grew up in a different environment where it's like being a man is, you know, being super self-sacrificing and always putting others first and providing to your own detriment, or whatever the stories are. But
Right.
like none of that is really there's no textbook on it.
No.
You know, we get to find our own authentic expression of
Being a
being a man.
people.
Yeah, being a person. Yeah, exactly, being a person.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that is very nice because when we're authentically just ourselves, we just are, right?
Mhm.
And so let's move this into relationships and being authentic or not within communicating in relationships. Because I've noticed that, a lot of times in that getting to know people stage, there's a lot of authentic sharing, there's a lot of vulnerability. There's usually a dump of histories and perspectives and things. And then what codependency starts coming in there, and there's agendas and there's vulnerability. And now there's, okay, that was nice that I could be myself and express freely. But now all of a sudden the other person wants something in exchange if we're going to keep getting to know each other or whatever it is. And now it's like, oh, I'm going to shut down talking about this stuff because that's not safe to speak about. So, I have this beautiful dream that we're getting into relationships where that stuff doesn't start to happen, that when people are in ownership of their truth, that they know themselves well enough, first off, to not desire to get into relationships before they know themselves. That would be great. That would be amazing if we had a culture that people knew themselves and what they were actually looking for, what would be good for them before they got into intimate relationships. And that we were taught those skills. Having said that, too, one backtrack I didn't say out loud was that when children have their needs met, they, before age 7, when they're in theta brainwave state, they have a greater chance of being and feeling lovable for who they really are. And that, unfortunately, is not necessarily even close for the vast majority of children, either not being seen as unique beings and overlooked or dismissed or rejected, or they're inconvenience, or they don't get a lot of time with their parents. That is a huge thing that helps with interpersonal relationships and the way that I hear attachment styles and all that kind of thing, but yeah, what do you ground this? I've got so much coming in. What's coming up for you?
Mm.
Help.
Yeah.
Structure.
Yeah, well, we were talking about authenticity in relationships, and you were speaking specifically to intimate relationships and how
Yeah,
we show, like, maybe at the beginning there's an authentic expression, and sometimes not. Like sometimes people are really putting on a mask to get
right.
a certain
Oh,
image in place, right? Like it depends on someone's where they're at in themselves, because that's kind of
right.
how so much of the world operates. It's like, oh, like who do I need to be to impress this person, or who do I need to be attractive, which is like such a unfortunate trend in our world. And you know, the people watching this may or may not still be in that space. If so,
Thank
know
you
that
for that because I've just realized I've never once done that.
yeah, and it's
You
something that
know?
is really common, right? Even just, like,
Okay.
the world of dating where it's like you you show up and you, like, go do these things, and it's like, what if you sat down with someone and just, like, really shared deep authentically in deep presence, and just showed up in, like, a really authentic way, like, shared your heart on the first
Mm,
date and been like, "I'm gonna share my true essence with you, and you share your true essence with me, and we'll just feel if this actually has alignment or not."
mm.
And that's like a whole different experience than going on a date and being casual and like waiting 2 years before you even share your deepest self with
Right.
someone, and then it's like now you're 2 years into spending time and energy with someone that you're just now maybe getting to know. And I mean, there is time, does take time to get to know anyone, to see the different phases and
Yeah,
aspects of themselves. That said, yeah, for me, I feel like maintaining that authenticity is about truth telling, just like really having a deep dedication to truth in our life, and being truthful with ourselves and then truthful with our significant other, with our beloved, and
yeah.
to like not let fear override that. It's like, how many times does someone maybe start to feel attracted to another person, but they just never share it because it's like, "Oh, I don't wanna hurt my partner's feelings or cause a problem," or like, so I'll just,
Mm,
like, hide that. But it's like, if you're just upfront about it, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean you're gonna
mm.
do anything about it, or maybe you are, and you need to explore that, and that's an authentic
Yeah.
conversation that needs to be had because it's not just gonna go away if you ignore it,
Right.
or if
That's
you're
an interesting one. The more I get into relationships, the more that seems to be like I am truly monogamous, and I feel like that does affect the work I do because I do have a sense that true love exists and that that can be the holy grail, right? When you're actually with somebody who there is no attraction for someone else. I mean, that would be the holy grail that you're so well matched with somebody that that wandering eye or that biology or whatever is no longer running the show like that. Um, and it on the other flip of that, I think that if we're not at that place with the partner that we're with, or we've committed to somebody that that isn't true with, that there needs to be some real talk and self accountability that maybe we got into a relationship without a foundation or maybe we need to be in an open relationship or maybe there needs to be like it just opens up a whole
well, it's
spectrum
just
of things.
but it's just like the human biology that has like there's just an energy that you can be attracted, like our being can be attracted to more than one person. It doesn't mean you're gonna
True.
do anything about it, or that
Right.
it's just like,
Or
oh,
that it's a sexual thing?
yeah, or that
Or
it
are we
isn't.
talking spirit energetic attraction or sexual attraction? Or is it the same? This is a
Yeah,
really
I find
interesting topic.
I find it's the same because I can see a beautiful woman but feel no resonance, and there's not actually an attraction there, even if she's a physically
True.
beautiful person. Whereas
Right.
there can also be someone that's maybe not as physically attractive as like what I would deem as like really attractive, but there's such an energetic resonance that there can be an attraction. And I think there's like many people we can be attracted to. It's just whether we choose to open ourselves to that or not, and the nature of the relationship. I mean, I'm a monogamous person as well. I've never felt called to being in an open relationship, or that's never been a desire in my heart. And I think it's just like I met this elder a while back, and we were talking about this, and he's been married like 25 years, and he shared a really fun story where he's like, yeah, like, I mean, I can't speak for women, but as men, like, we're gonna be attracted to more than just our partner, and that's just our
Mm,
biology. And he was saying how, like, yeah, he has many females in his life that are just friends, and he doesn't feel an energy with them, and it's good to have those friends. And he's like, if I see a woman and I feel that attraction with her, he's like, I just walk the other way. I don't entertain a friendship with
Mhm.
her. I don't try to pursue any kind of connection with her because he's monogamous. And he's like, then that just
Mm,
keeps me clean because
yeah,
he's not going to open that door because he's deeply committed to his wife. And I thought that was like a beautiful way of managing that.
it
Um,
is.
you
It's
know,
one of the ways. I find as a woman, so I even though I'm ideally monogamous, I've never had a deep monogamous relationship where I haven't had a backup plan for another
Mhm,
man or a fantasy about the guy that never hurt me that I could always go back to if this didn't work out. Like I've always had a secret place inside of me that keeps me safe from totally going all
mhm,
in my past. I'm not in that place anymore, and I've done a lot of work to transcend that. So it's interesting to me because I know we do say it, the male biology, just on an animal sense, that males are more driven to procreate, and women have to, or females have to be more selective. And so there's a difference in that. But as a person, I haven't been in a fully aligned relationship. I've been in relationships too young. I've been in relationships because I got pregnant and we committed after that. I've been in relationships that have been really trauma bond. I've been attracted in many, many different sense. But the more I heal, the more I realize. So those spectrums we were talking about, where we have the emotional scale and we can have different experiences. With the work I do with the sacral chakra and the divine love stuff, we've got the sexual polarity and we've got the spiritual polarity. And I often will say that the mastery of the sacral chakra is the ability to know with profound discernment when we're sexualizing things that are spiritual and spiritualizing things that are sexual. Like we can get right down into that knowledge for ourselves. When we come into that amount of alignment, we're not randomly attracted or attracted to a lot of people because we can differentiate whether it's sexual, whether it's spiritual, and we can then be empowered to know. I think a lot of the things that we misunderstand as sexual attraction are actually spiritual attraction, but we don't have because we're so sexually repressed. And so I feel compassion for the gentleman that you were talking about because who knows, maybe that incredible, vibrant feminine that he was attracted to had the answer to something he'd been pondering for 5 years, and he was drawn to this person because she in her aura had that coding, and he sexualized it because he's not giving himself permission to be. I wonder about these things. I
mhm.
mean, I've dived in for the last 5 years every single day about attraction, and we sexualize it a lot too often. And that's something I feel like we really part of sacred relationship is allowing for that true connection dep beyond the fragility of, the threat of a vulnerable relationship, not being able to withstand, talking to a opposite gender or something within the confines of that relationship. And I do think our dialogue as people is going to be, um, expanding to help each other, like going before we get into relationships, like teasing out these things and getting to that stage. I think it's vital for preparedness to come into a relationship, to know how we each stand on things like that, and that we're both at a place, when people commit, they should know these things. I'll often say, like with the Western marriage vows, through good times and bad, sickness and in health, thick and thin, till death do us part kind of thing. So many people slam into that arrangement and then hope for the best. But what about knowing those things leading up to making a vow like that about each other and taking that time to understand that it's legitimate, and authenticity, communication, um, that mature knowing ourselves. If we don't know ourselves, yeah, we're going to be run on that animal frequency, that kind of zone. What's coming up for you about all that?
Yeah, I appreciate the conversation because this is something I've really been in study with myself too, because in past experiences and relationships, I've sometimes had leaky energy where I'm like, you know, feeling like I'm getting something out of a connection with the opposite sex. It's not necessarily like a sexual thing, but it's just that charge or whatever that you can feel with the opposite gender that is taking away from the relationship, and it's something that I've really been like, "Oh, well, that's not who I wanna be, and I wanna be, clean with my energy and have, like, a really loving relationship with my partner and also with my own energy and have that clarity." And so I've also been really sitting with this whole idea of how to be in a monogamous relationship and be in right relation with the opposite gender and with my own energy, and to be like deeply honest about like, okay, is this connection with this person a friendship, or is there also an undertone of like a natural attraction that's there because we can alchemize with many different people, there's many different, you know experiences to explore in this world, and is there an undertone of that within this dynamic that is offering something that's enticing or exciting, even if I would never pursue it beyond just the experience of it, or maybe there's a sense of receiving validation or receiving that energy of like someone being attracted to you. It does kind of glow you up a little bit. It's like there's an energy of like when you appreciate a flower in nature for its beauty, that flower feels your appreciation and will actually be able to grow more fully. Like
Mm.
there's a beauty to plants that teach us this. So if I stare at a person and appreciate their beauty, it will actually give them energy and enhance their energy. It doesn't mean it's sexual. It can just be like appreciating anyone's beauty, a baby's beauty, an elder's beauty, anyone, another man's beauty, and just be like, wow, I can see this person's beauty. Maybe it's their physical beauty. Maybe
I'm
it's
seeing Jim Carrey emanating love. And he did a YouTube video once and he just like slowly emanates love. Sorry, I got
yeah,
so
it's like
distracted because it's like living in that state of appreciation, which
right.
is the highest frequency in this dimension. Heck yes to that. That's what we should all be doing to the point where, we don't need anything from it.
Yeah,
We should just,
totally. And
beauty's in the eye of the
that's some
beholder.
and that's something that David Data talks about, who's like
Oh yeah, I
you
know
know,
his work too.
yeah, he's amazing, like for
Yeah.
polarity and understanding the
As a
female
woman,
dynamics.
it's a different read,
Totally.
than a man, but I'm very familiar because my
Well,
ex-husband was a big fan of his work when we met, and I definitely have a few
yeah, and it's
sensitivities
for
about
sure.
his work.
But it's like it's a really honest, wholesome picture of like how a lot of the inner workings of men is. I don't necessarily think he's like the authority on it and every
Right,
single thing
it's
he says is
good
true.
dialogue coming
Yeah.
in.
But
Yeah,
it's like it's an amazingly enlightening read that
yeah,
helps men understand their masculine male nature without the
right,
judgment and dogma of it, and just being
right.
able to embrace it as like, "Oh, this is just, like, normal for, 99% of men," or whatever, so I don't know, the majority of men, a lot of these things we can all relate to, and it helps us understand ourselves to be like, "Oh, I'm gonna naturally be drawn to a radiant woman's beauty, and it doesn't mean I have to do anything about it. It doesn't mean I have to talk to her. It doesn't mean I have to flirt with her. It doesn't mean I have to sexualize it. It doesn't mean I have to do anything. I can just like see it and be like, oh, there's a glow from that woman that
Women are
lights,
beautiful.
yeah, that
Let's
lights
face it. Like
totally,
women,
yeah,
I stare at beautiful women
yeah.
and I'm definitely straight, but like women are really beautiful. I think in many ways women are more beautiful than men.
I mean, I
Men are
agree with that.
beautiful too.
I'm
I
a bit
know.
biased, but
I mean, I feel like women are meant to be the flower to be pollinated, right? Is that
Mhm,
sort of it? Men are, I love men. Obviously, anybody who sees my channel, I get called out for like glorifying men a lot.
mhm,
We talk a lot about men on my channel. I love men
mhm.
and different type of things that um yeah, anyways,
Mhm.
people, we're
Yeah.
divine,
Yeah.
you know, like, and when we see people that are in alignment, it's exciting, right? Like, we want the whole world to be turned on. Jerry Garcia said, "Turn your friends on." Like, I
Mhm.
really truly believe, like, we should all be glowing and making the world go round. I hear everything you're saying in my own path to mastery through the sacred sexuality and safety and intimacy and this work. I internally I call it my overcoming sexual tension.
Mhm.
And like authentically, I've had some pretty um, difficult situations that have manifested in my life that have really helped clarify for me as a woman the difference between objectification um, and my spiritual essence. I think that was a really big turning point for me was when I saw that my life force energy wasn't my animal self, it was truly my connection to source, and that before we know that it's about our spiritual energy, that attraction is about that, we're locked sort of just in that animalistic view of it. And, you know, that's where in rape and all that kind of thing comes in is when it's stealing that light, stealing that energy, and nobody knows that that's what's going on. The victim doesn't know that's the light that's being stolen. That's why there's a lot of predatory energy with naive, innocent, or unaware,
Mhm.
because there's this light that's being taken.
Mhm.
Um, but the predator doesn't understand themselves well enough to know that that is the spiritual light they don't have in themselves that they're trying to take. And so when we reduce it to that as a material realm issue, we get into this flip side. You know, I've found the sexual tension is really coming from that spiritual place. If a man is attracted to me and I know if I don't reciprocate that attraction, that they are attracted to my light, my spiritual light. And
Mm.
so that's been one of the biggest breakthroughs I've had with being able to maintain my authenticity in the face of a man who's curious if I'm somebody that's a potential person for them, or, you know, whatever they're wanting from me, if I feel that it's sexualized or on that animal level,
Mm.
I'm still, I have learned
Mm.
to still be receptive to, I think it's a smart man because I love myself. I'm stoked. I'm like, yeah, cool.
Mm.
That guy's attracted to me. But haha, I'm not available, but he must be drawn to my light. So I'm curious and I will engage with that person and I will see where that goes. I'm not gonna I if I don't feel safe, of course, but if it's a genuine connection, I'm talking about genuine attraction. I love to see what's there because I know that there's something bigger going on because I've moved into my spiritual energy, not my animal energy.
Mhm.
And so coming from that place, yeah, that's a lot of freedom and authenticity in that.
Yeah. And I feel like that touches on a really good point of like the energy of taking in those dynamics of like someone wanting something from another, whether it's like pleasure or a sexual connection or your light or whatever it is, and how that then breeds in a lot of people inauthenticity. They're like, oh, I
Mm,
see this beautiful man or woman, or I see this man who's successful and I want to take like resources, or I see his strength and I want, you know, or a woman, I want her body or whatever it might be that is in that realm of taking. And then that's like, okay, like then it gets manipulative because now it's not about giving and receiving, it's about taking and extracting. And then people go into these patterns of inauthenticity, covert contracts, kind of like, you know, doing things with ulterior motives, and
mm,
it's not authentic. And then that's those are the dynamics that drain us
right.
and take away, and how there's authenticity, I've found it's like you are authentic in yourself, and so you don't necessarily want things from people in the same way. You wanna share with people, you wanna be with other
And you
authentic
can pick
people.
up on it when
Yeah.
somebody's in that vibe, and so it's sort of like energetic self-defense,
Mhm.
being
Yeah,
authentic. It weeds
totally.
out anything that's bullshit.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
Yeah, it
your little
doesn't.
alarms go off and you're like, "Oh,
Yeah,
this."
and so it's like what degree of bullshit is
Mhm.
this today?
Yeah, right?
But yeah, it really is good. The more authentic. Right. And it's
And
not just people approaching, it's also how can I approach others regardless if I think they're physically attractive or not. Like I'm looking
mhm,
for the energy and what's there for me. I'm not going in with an agenda as what I can take from it, but I'm
mhm,
going in with open curiosity. Here's another me in a different form. Here's another divine being. What's up
mhm,
with them? What's their jam?
mhm,
What's unique about them? What's
mhm,
authentic about them? Why has this person populated my reality in this moment?
mhm.
What
Yeah, there's
what's
the
there?
desire
The play.
for there's an yeah, and it's more of an exchange
Yes.
because exchanges are giving and receiving, whereas this other form is taking, trying to get
Yes.
something. And on the other side of that is, I know for myself, in any form of relationship, it doesn't have to be intimate, or even just in my life, it's like the moment I want something, to get something or to keep something, it's rooted in some sort of fear or scarcity. And then
Right.
that has driven me towards maybe like not being fully honest or transparent or not full
Exactly.
truth telling, because it's like, oh, if I tell the truth, what if this person doesn't want to be around me anymore? What if they
Mm.
reject me? And really sitting with those fears and really being honest about them and being like, oh, do I want to live from that fear? Or would I rather be authentic
Yeah.
and risk losing an inauthentic connection? Because if I'm
Exactly.
authentic and I tell the truth with love and
Right.
compassion, and I just, whether it's about me or about the other or about anything, and that person rejects me and doesn't want to be around me, then it's like, okay, well, they don't actually resonate with my authentic self. So I'm
No,
not really
exactly.
like, those are not really the kind of people that are going to create fulfilling, safe, beautiful connections. And it's
Right.
nothing against them. It's like maybe they're just not there yet, or maybe they're their own authentic self and my authentic self rubs up against their authentic self and it's not a good match. And then
Right. That's
it's,
the other thing. When we're all ourselves, it really does do the work for us. We don't have to guess.
yeah,
We can tell. But I heard it, what is it? Say no to someone and watch their true colors come out,
yeah, totally.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so good. Like create a conflict, like don't create it, but like be open to conflicts, like be open to conflicts with people and see how they respond. Like
Exactly.
like cuz
Yeah, and speaking our truth shouldn't be preparing for war, In this fragile herd mentality with deviation from the norm, we're like, I wanna kind of branch off from the status quo. It's not safe. That's not gonna be safe.
mhm,
And so we have all. I remember my quest to be authentic. As an artist, remember writing authenticity. That was like the word when I started putting my art out there because, art is an expression of the soul, and the more you feel good about what you're putting out there, the more authentic you are. And it's vulnerable to put yourself out as an artist. It's really a deep dive in that expression of self unapologetically.
mhm.
Um, but I lost my train of thought.
I'll I have something,
Yeah,
so I'll
go
just
for
share.
it. Your
So
turn.
my good friend Kirby, who I've mentioned before, because him and I are doing these online men's circles together. We've started the Equanimous Man, it's called, and it's an online container for men to come and learn how to be authentic with each other and ourselves. And him and I really value authenticity in our connection. And I remember he shares this often, but I remember the first time he shared it, it really resonated with me, where he said, he was like, "Yeah, at one point I wasn't very authentic and most people liked me." And he said,
Oh.
"When I'm authentic, but not many people loved me." And he said,
Mm.
"As I've become authentic, not everyone likes me, but I have those people that really cherish and love me. And I was
Yes.
like, wow, yeah, like, do you want to be liked by everyone, but no one really loves you or cherishes you in the depth of your
Right.
being? Or would you rather be authentic and really loved by by certain people and cherished and valued, and then have other people be like, I don't like that guy. He
Yeah.
grinds my gears. It's like whatever, like that's okay. Like you don't have to be liked by everyone.
Yeah.
And for me, that was like felt so true because there's been periods in my life where I haven't always known my authentic self, and therefore I wasn't
Right.
authentic, and it's not a conscious choice, it's just living in illusions, and I found that to be true. I found there was a lot of people who liked me, but there wasn't, and as I become more authentic, and there was still people that loved me, obviously. That said, the more authentic I become, the more I start noticing these people that pop up in my life that really see and value my authentic being, and they love me in a way that is so cherishing and beautiful, and I feel so valued. And
Yeah.
it's only because I learned to value myself and my authentic being first to then be able to share it and
Right.
then to receive it, and then for me to also what I see in myself, I can then appreciate in others, and then I'm able to offer that to them, and then they feel that love and
Yes.
cherishing and being seen. And that's such a beautiful gift, like, to really see and cherish someone for their authentic self. When you offer that to a human being, it validates them in a way that is needed as humans. Like, it's not the negative connotation of validation seeking, it's
No.
really just validating them, like, "You're a beautiful human being, and I appreciate you, and
Yeah, that
love you
appreciation.
know? Like, that's the validation that actually is really needed to build healthy relationships and for us to also build deeper confidence in ourselves. Like
Exactly. That's actually what I was about to say. I remember when I started realizing I wasn't being authentic in my core relationships. I remember like suddenly realizing I had all these disclaimers and fear and like backstory, and I would make excuses and I'd have this whole setup, build up before I'd actually say the thing that I truly wanted to say.
mhm,
And it was like off putting because there was all these layers of fear. And I started dismantling that fear and saying, okay, what remains when the fear is not there? And I really challenged myself not to do that build up when I wanted to express myself. And I got better and better at it. And then, you know, more and more unapologetically me to the point where I can just say something and it's not going to be off putting because I don't mean it that way. Because sometimes when we're really we don't know our worth, we don't feel that we matter, we don't feel our opinion matters, we have all that fear-based energy in there, and that's what people pick up on, and so their nervousness starts up and it's already priming for like a panic mode in conversations,
mm,
right?
yeah,
And I yeah, uh, that that's been a deep work coming
mm,
into communicating from a place where regularly dropping in, what is it that I'm actually wanting to express here? And what's so wrong with that again? And trusting ourselves and
mm,
knowing that if we're not speaking from that place, we're literally only connecting with people through the mask we're portraying.
mhm,
And then we're not really connecting with people at all
mhm,
because they're not actually seeing what we're really thinking and feeling.
mm, yeah,
So that's what we need to, the
mhm,
safety. And there's a lot accountability, what we are talking about last time. If we are not accountable for our own energy, we're blaming, projecting, and when somebody's trying to speak their truth, then there's all throwing monkey poop. That's what I've called it before. It just gets so futile,
mm,
trying to have conversations to get to the bottom of things when we're hashing it out with another person. If we lack the clarity about what we're really wanting to express before we try to say it to somebody, it's just
mm,
hell. It's hell.
yeah,
And
totally,
so, like, I'm such an advocate for really dropping into what we're actually thinking and feeling and then bringing it to. I hear a lot of people on my channel commenting, if my person would just talk to me. And I'm like, if you're seeking that conversation for closure or clarity from that person, I'm glad they're not talking to you, because you need to find your truth first. And oftentimes, when we drop in and find our own truth, there's nothing left to get or exchange with that person we think we need to talk to, because we're kind of in a parent-child relationship. They're on a pedestal. They've got the answers. They have it figured out. They're withholding truth from me, and I'm over here spinning wheels. If I can only get what I want from them, then everything will be fine. No, we're more empowered than that. So instead of, feeling fear to speak our thing, we won't feel that fear if we find it within ourselves. And instead of feeling fear to not have something from someone, we can find it within ourselves. We actually don't need other people for that clarity. Obviously, our connection to source would be that measure of higher truth and love and purity, so we can, keep honing whatever it is we're trying to find within by that aligned perspective that resonates as love, that sits well with us. The truth sets us free. So if we're starting to seek something for clarity within ourselves, we just have to ask ourselves, does this feel like peace yet? It does this sit well with my soul? If not, we can keep going back to a version of the story that starts to feel better and better internally. We don't need anything out there, because we can find that within ourselves. And that's where compassion comes in.
Mhm.
When we're not authentic, communication's a waste of time.
Mm.
It's a total waste of time.
Mm. Mhm. Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I feel the truth in that for me as well. Like, if we bring a confused, unclear energy, it makes for confused, unclear communication.
Yeah.
So having that clarity before the conversation, as much as we can, is gonna bring so much beauty,
Yeah.
to the dynamic.
What
And
are some of your tools and techniques for doing that? How do you, what do you personally experience when you're getting off track? What is that like, for you when you when you're trying to find clarity and authenticity? Um, what is it like inside your own inner process there, from seeing something going off track to bringing yourself back onto track with it?
for me, it's really like my practice of meditation and being in nature and going into my inner world. And clarity is like for me, clarity and truth and authenticity all go together. So when we're in an authentic, clear, truthful place, there may still be fear that arises because maybe we have to have a hard conversation. However, there's this clarity. There's just like, you can see it. There's not a confusion. Whereas if I'm unclear or lost touch with my authentic truth, there's going to be some distortion within myself. There might be anxiety. There might be like an inability to want to sit and be with it. There might be experiences in my body like tension or contraction. I might feel a sense of angst. And these are all clues that, like, okay, there's something here to sit with, right? And then in sitting with it, we clarify it. So that's been my experience with it.
Where did you learn you could be successful with that? Do you think we have that already inside of us, or is that something that can be taught?
Yeah, I mean, that's really what I teach people in many ways. And for me, it's about finding truth, finding God within, because it's the light of consciousness that brings clarity. It's not your mind. Your mind is not a clear, like, the soul shining through the mind can be clear. The mind is a tool, but if you're living from your mind or you're living from just your emotions, it's it's not a very clarifying energy. It's when we can observe our mind or observe our emotions from a space of consciousness and soul that then it becomes easier and easier to clarify. So really grounding ourselves in truth is the foundation for me. Like, because it's not really me as my ego that gets clarity. It's more tuning into my inner essence, higher self, soul, God within, that then allows me to find that.
Do you remember, I mean, this is maybe putting you on the spot. Do you remember like an earliest memory of being able to do that or being drawn to that?
Um, yeah, I remember like as a child, I would find it in nature. Like there would be this clarity of just like looking at a flower
Hmm.
or like looking in the garden and watching the ants or, you know, like there was something
Yeah.
there that there was a clarity and I would feel my soul.
Hmm. Oh my goodness. I just remembered this time when I was a little kid, maybe I was 3 years old, and there was a woman across the street that hated dandelions in her yard. And she was like really, really frustrated with it all the time. And I remember my dad picking a fluffy dandelion, and I remember him pointing me towards her yard and saying, "Blow." And for whatever reason, he was calling her bluff that she didn't need to be so uptight about the dandelions on her yard. And I remember in that moment, he taught me. He taught me not to worry so much. I think she'd been yelling about the dandelion, like she was not calm about dandelions.
Mm-hmm.
And he gave me permission not to buy into it. My
Mm-hmm.
dad's a brilliant man, a little bit of a brat, as you can tell from that story.
Yeah.
But, it's like, yeah, those moments where we can choose to not buy into the illusion. If it
Mm-hmm.
feels like fear, if it feels imbalanced, if it makes us crazy, if it starts to unnerve us, if it starts to make us feel tense,
Mm-hmm.
these are all indicators that maybe there's an alternative and
Mm-hmm.
we can be that. What we were talking about a little bit, that authenticity. You were bringing up something about when people have an agenda or a motive and they're approaching connection with an agenda in mind. Yeah, I think it did come through about when we're in our truth, when we know our worth, when we understand our own clarity. Does it work for us or not? In that moment, we can be self guided, we can be aligned. What's coming right now. The highest truth never asks us to harm ourselves or others,
Mm-hmm.
and that's always good. I think we're a little bit over time. I think maybe we'll wrap it up. Is there anything you would like to add about our
I would
our
just say like,
conversation today?
yeah, like to sum it up, for me, authenticity is really about connecting with the deep truth of our being willing to be radically honest with ourselves and others, courageously and bravely facing our fears as they arise and not letting them control us, and really deeply valuing
Mm,
human beings, in our own being and essence, and being willing to humble ourselves to that higher power. Like
mhm,
authenticity is also a humble path where we say, okay, like I'm humbling myself to this deeper truth, and it's uncomfortable,
mhm,
but I'm going to do what's right and have integrity. And yeah, I found authenticity is not always easy when you first start practicing it, because you have to correct a lot of things of the ways you've been
mm.
inauthentic. But it's like, so like the juice is worth the squeeze.
Yeah, yeah. And that discipline, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't We don't come by it naturally. We systematically over time we close the gap. And I think of something like being past the expiration date. The longer we know that something isn't authentic, the more backlash we get,
Mhm.
and so being able to find a way to honor that inauthenticity in any moment that we realize that it's happening,
Mhm.
and to just say something feels off,
Mhm.
something doesn't feel good, and
Mm,
to take pause and to give ourselves permission to normalize
mhm,
authenticity, to trust ourselves, to be trustworthy.
mm,
You can't trust somebody who's not being coherent with what's going on inside and what they're expressing or omitting, right?
mhm,
And so, yeah, it
mm.
makes the world go round.
Yeah.
I'm giving everybody permission to be yourself.
Yes.
All right. It's been a pleasure again. This
Mhm.
is fun. Much
Yeah,
love.
thank you so much. Really beautiful to share with you today, and yeah, we'll see you next week.
Sounds good. Bye, everybody.
Bye.